Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today. As you know, the topic is 5 practical things to do when the diagnosis is dementia.
Hi, my name is Jamie Oldham. I am a registered nurse. I'm a care manager for here at Schluter and Hughes law firm. We're an estate planning law firm that also offers care management services along with trustee services and tax. And this here is my partner.
Hi, my name is Beth Regner. I am a physician assistant, and I'm also a care coordinator here at Schluter and Hughes Law Firm. Now that we have the information and are preparing it, we're going to share it. How do we want to do that, Jamie?
So we're kind of talking about a lot of things that these individuals need to know about you, right? And sometimes that interrupts our privacy a little bit. But the first thing we want to do is we want our patient advocate to know our entire medical picture. We want them to know what our drug allergies are, what current medications we're taking, what past surgeries we've had, what medical conditions that we struggle with, because they might have to answer questions for you on your behalf if you become hospitalized because of advanced dementia, or even because of another medical emergency
True.
in which you don't have a voice, like you've had a stroke or something. The emergency room actually calls or will reach out to that patient advocate. Also sharing things with your patient advocate and power of attorney, such as like where your money is at. What banks do you put is your money in? What are your passwords for your MyChart, for your online medical record, if you use that? Oh, who are your doctors? Make sure your patient advocate knows who your doctors are. And when you're at those doctor's appointments, make sure you're listing that patient advocate as somebody on the HIPAA release. Because if they need to call that physician's office to get records from there to send somewhere else or any type of information about your last visit, the doctor's office needs to be able to talk to them. Gotcha. Things like your lock code for your iPhone or any mobile phone, right? And your Apple ID password. These are all things that somebody else should know in case of emergency or in case of increased forgetfulness, so that somebody else can help. That's the point of this patient advocate, is they can kind of, pick up the pieces that the senior is forgetting. The patient advocate can execute those things so that we have a nice smooth transition and improved quality of life. Then taking some of that information and making an emergency card for their wallet, or even putting some information on paper and sticking it in their wallet. It's things like who their patient advocate is and a phone number. Same thing with power of attorney, their list of doctors, any drug allergies, code status, and we're going to talk about code status here a little bit more in detail. But if you're transported to the hospital in an emergency situation, it's not always that the hospital knows who you are. And ladies, we probably didn't get to grab our purse before we were transported by EMS. So we need to make sure that we can give our emergency responders as much information ahead of time.
That's a good point, Jamie. When I worked in the hospital setting, a lot of times when patients would arrive in the emergency department by ambulance, their family was coming behind in a car, and nurses and doctors would go through the patient's wallet if they had it, or any personal information they had on them, looking for a card like that so that they could safely treat the patient. Next up is code status. So let's talk about what is code status. Code status is a set of instructions for medical professionals about what treatment you want in a medical emergency. So another way of describing code status is your advance directive. That's a bigger, broader term. This describes what kind of code status you want to be and what your wishes are for end-of-life care. So first of all, let's define these things. Full code, what is that? Unless otherwise documented, full code means that you want and you will receive all aggressive life-sustaining measures to keep you alive. So in the general community, the general public, everyone by default is considered a full code. So this means if you stop breathing, your heart stops beating, you're going to get CPR, which is chest compressions and mouth-to-mouth breathing. Intubation, which is a breathing tube that is placed in your airway and then gets hooked up to a ventilator and pushes air into your lungs. Other things are emergency surgeries, IV medications, admission to the intensive care unit. No document is required to be considered a full code. By default, all humans are a full code unless they have legal paperwork that states otherwise. Next up is what I'm sure a lot of people have heard about, do not resuscitate, or DNR. This is a code status that states very clearly if your heart stops beating and you stop breathing, you do not want aggressive measures to revive you and to prolong your life. So you do not want CPR. You do not want intubation. People may choose this code status when they wish to pass away and what we call quote unquote naturally, whatever process has caused their heart to stop beating, they don't want to interrupt that. And they don't want medical technology to artificially prolong their life. This is a very common code status in individuals who are very elderly, in those with severe medical conditions, and in those with advanced dementia. The older and sicker you are, the harder it is for you to recover from any kind of medical emergency. This is a legal document. It requires your signature or the signature of your patient advocate and a signature of your physician. And lastly, the MyPost. Now, this is a mouthful. This is the Michigan Physician Orders for Scope of Treatment. So all that to say, MyPost is kind of a nice in-between of full code and do not resuscitate. So this is a legal document that gives more specific information. For instance, Jamie, what if you become very sick, but your heart is still beating and you are still breathing? The DNR doesn't really work for you then in that situation, does it? So the MyPost allows you to spell out whether you want IV medication, whether you want IV hydration. What about artificial nutrition? If you have a stroke and can no longer swallow, do you want a feeding tube placed to give you nutrition or not? What if your kidneys stop filtering your blood and you're presented with the choice of having kidney dialysis? Is this something that you want? So outlining these all in the MyPost form can assist your patient advocate and the medical staff in knowing the bigger picture, getting an idea of what your wishes are and some very specifics about what your wishes are. So this again is a legal document. This again requires a signature from yourself or your patient advocate as well as your physician. And this is a document that needs to be renewed yearly and is really put in place for those who have about a year life expectancy or less.
So really then, Beth, what you're saying is if I had COPD and I have really bad lungs and I take a lot of medicines for my lungs and I don't go outside much because I really struggle to breathe. I could make myself a do not resuscitate because I really don't want to ever be intubated because my doctors told me that if I become intubated, I probably can't come off intubation, right? Because my lungs are weak.
Correct.
But you're saying I could still have IV therapy if I have pneumonia or a treatable lung infection. I could just make a limit that I don't want to go on a ventilator.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a great way of describing it, Jamie. If you think a care coordinator might be right for you and your family, don't hesitate, give our office a call and we can set up a free consultation. You can come into our firm and meet the entire team, or we can come to you, whatever is most convenient.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.